Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're heading to a place you might only know from headlines, Iraq. But we're going way beyond the news snippets. We're going to uncover the country that's both ancient and incredible modern.
Yeah, it really is fascinating how we often only see one image of a place. But there's this whole tapestry of history and culture and just lived experiences just waiting to be uncovered.
Exactly. So think of this deep dive as your insider's guide to Iraq. From the echoes of ancient empires to what you actually need to know to navigate a visit today.
And to really understand Iraq today, we need to go way back. We need to understand its roots in Mesopotamia. You know that region between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers?
Oh yeah, Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
Not just some random spot on a map, but literally the birthplace of civilizations that basically invented the game.
Yes. Around 4500 BC. The Sumerians, they weren't just hanging out, they were building cities. They invented cuneiform writing. They etched stories onto clay tablets. Can you imagine the patience?
That just blows my mind every time. It's like Instagram, but way more permanent. And then there's Babylon, a metropolis even way back then,
Right.
with its legendary hanging gardens. Talk about a lost wonder.
And these weren't just cities, they were hubs of innovation. We're talking astronomy, law, think Hammurabi's code, the whole eye for an eye concept, and literature that laid the groundwork for stories we still tell today.
So when we learn about the origins of law and astronomy, or storytelling, we're really connecting back to what is now modern-day Iraq.
Absolutely. All of those Mesopotamian innovations are woven into the very fabric of our society today.
Okay, so we're going to fast forward now through millennia of empires rising and falling, Persians, Ottomans, and then after World War I, Iraq emerges as a modern state. But it hasn't been a smooth journey at all.
Definitely not. It's a story of immense oil wealth, but also internal conflicts and the long shadow of the 2003 invasion and its aftermath.
So to even grasp where Iraq stands today, understanding this really complex history is crucial.
Absolutely essential. And while challenges definitely remain, there's also this drive to rebuild and a cultural richness that's absolutely captivating. Imagine a place where hospitality is not just a word, it's a way of life.
Now that's what I want to hear more about. What's it actually like to be in Iraq beyond the headlines?
Okay, so imagine this. You arrive and you're welcomed like family immediately. You're offered tea, meals constantly. Refusing is like a major no-no. It's a level of generosity that can feel overwhelming at first, but it just speaks volumes about their values.
That sounds incredible, but it would take some getting used to, for sure. And I've heard that respect for elders is deeply ingrained in Iraqi culture.
Oh, absolutely. From standing when they enter a room to using formal titles, tradition runs deep.
Yep.
And family. Family is the bedrock of everything.
To strong community bonds, large family gatherings, and even the tradition of arranged marriages, where families have a significant say.
Exactly. It's a social structure that's very different from the individualism we see in Western cultures. Which brings us to a potentially tricky situation.
Okay, let's say I'm in Iraq. I want to be respectful, but I'm totally clueless about the customs. How do I even say hello without causing offense? Because I have a feeling it's not as simple as it seems.
You're absolutely right. It's a little bit of a social dance, but we can break it down. Are you ready to navigate this maze of Iraqi greetings?
Hit me with it. I'm all ears.
All right, so for men greeting men, it's pretty straightforward. Handshakes are the go-to, maybe cheek kisses if you're close. But when men greet women, things get a little more nuanced.
Okay, I'm already sensing a potential for cultural missteps here. What's the protocol?
This is where it's so important to pay attention to cultural cues. The most important thing to remember is that a man should always wait for the woman to initiate any contact.
So no rushing in for a handshake or anything like that?
Exactly. It's about respecting her boundaries, letting her lead the interaction. If she extends her hand for a handshake, then by all means, reciprocate.
Got it. Observation is key. What if she doesn't offer a handshake?
A nod or a slight bow is a perfectly respectful alternative. It acknowledges her presence without overstepping any boundaries.
Okay, that makes sense. It's fascinating how even simple greetings can reveal so much about a culture's values.
It really does. And speaking of values, you mentioned earlier how important family is in Iraqi society. It goes beyond just close relatives, doesn't it?
Right. I've heard that hospitality extends beyond the immediate family. It's more like a community-wide embrace.
Absolutely. Think of it this way. If you're a friend of a friend, you're practically family. The sense of community is incredibly strong.
So if you're invited to someone's home, you can expect to be treated like royalty.
Pretty much. Be prepared for a feast. Food plays a huge role in Iraqi hospitality. And refusing food is considered a serious faux pas.
Oh, wow. I better come hungry. What are some of the must-try dishes that really capture the essence of Iraqi cuisine?
Well, we briefly mentioned maskoof, but let me paint you a better picture. Imagine fresh fish, typically carp, grilled over an open fire, infused with the smoky flavors of wood, seasoned with simple aromatic spices.
That sounds amazing. It's like a culinary snapshot of Iraq's connection to its rivers and its history.
Exactly. And then there's quaisi, a dish that's fit for a king, tender lamb, slow cooked with rice, nuts, and spices, often served on a bed of fluffy bread. It's a true celebration of flavors.
Okay, I'm officially adding those to my culinary bucket list.
Yeah.
It's incredible how food can tell a story.
Absolutely. Each dish is a tapestry of history and tradition and cultural influences, all woven together.
And speaking of artistic expressions, I know Iraq has this rich heritage of crafts.
Oh, where do I begin? Picture bustling markets, filled with vibrant carpets, each one a masterpiece of intricate designs and colors, often passed down through generations of weavers.
I can almost feel the textures and smell the dyes, just imagining it. What about other crafts?
Well, pottery is another art form that has deep roots in Iraq. From delicate ceramics with intricate patterns to sturdy terracotta pieces, you'll find incredible craftsmanship everywhere.
It's amazing how these traditions have endured through centuries, connecting modern Iraq to its ancient past.
It's a testament to the resilience of Iraqi culture. And speaking of enduring traditions, we can't forget the music.
Right. What can you tell us about traditional Iraqi music? What kind of instruments and sounds can we expect?
One of the most iconic instruments is the oud, a pear-shaped lute that produces these hauntingly beautiful melodies. Then there's the tabla, a type of drum that adds this rhythmic pulse to the music.
It sounds so evocative. I can imagine hearing that music drifting through the streets of Baghdad or echoing in the ancient courtyards.
You're painting a vivid picture. It's a music that's both deeply rooted in tradition and constantly evolving, blending old and new influences.
So we've touched on history and culture and food and music. It feels like we're getting this much richer picture of Iraq, beyond the often simplified narratives we see in the news.
And there's still so much more to explore. We haven't even delved into the complexities of modern Iraq, the challenges it faces, and the hopes for its future.
That's right. While it's important to celebrate the richness of Iraqi culture, we can't shy away from the difficult conversations either.
Absolutely. We need to understand the nuances, the different perspectives, and the ongoing efforts to rebuild and create a brighter future for Iraq.
So let's dive into those complexities. We talked about the 2003 invasion and its lasting impact. What are some of the key challenges Iraq faces today as a result of that really tumultuous period?
One of the most significant challenges is the ongoing instability and security concerns, fueled in part by the rise and fall of groups like ISIS.
Right, even though ISIS was officially defeated, their influence and the threat of extremism still linger in certain areas, creating a sense of fear and uncertainty for a lot of Iraqis.
It's heartbreaking. And it's not just ISIS. There are also independent armed groups, often with ties to neighboring countries, that operate outside the control of the Iraqi government, adding another layer of complexity to the security situation.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act for the Iraqi government, trying to maintain stability while also navigating the influences of these regional powers.
Exactly. The influence of Iran, the relationship with the United States, the struggle for resources and political power, these are all factors that contribute to the ongoing challenges Iraq faces.
And we can't forget the economic challenges. We mentioned Iraq's vast oil wealth earlier, but it seems like relying so heavily on one resource can be risky, especially in a volatile global market.
You're absolutely right. Oil accounts for a staggering 90% of Iraq's state income, so any fluctuation in oil prices can have this ripple effect throughout the entire economy.
So it's like putting all your eggs in one basket, which can be precarious. What are some potential solutions to diversify the Iraqi economy and make it more resilient?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Experts believe that investing in non-oil sectors, like agriculture, technology, and yes, even tourism, could hold the key to a more sustainable future.
Tourism. That's an interesting thought. I mean, Iraq has such a wealth of history and cultural sites to offer. Imagine exploring the ancient ruins of Ur, walking through the remains of Babylon.
Exactly. The potential is enormous. But of course, safety and stability are paramount for tourism to thrive.
It's a long road ahead. But it sounds like there's hope, a sense of resilience among the Iraqi people.
Absolutely. Despite the challenges, there's a spirit of determination, a desire to rebuild and reclaim their rich heritage.
Okay, so we've explored the depths of history and the richness of culture and the complexities of modern-day Iraq. It feels like we've only scratched the surface, but we've gained a much deeper appreciation for this often misunderstood country.
It's been quite a journey, and I think what's most striking is the warmth and hospitality of the Iraqi people, their resilience in the face of adversity, and their deep connection to their heritage.
It makes you realize that there's always more to a place than what we see in the headlines, and often the unseen destinations are the ones that offer the most profound experiences.
Speaking of unseen destinations, have you ever noticed how easily we can get caught up in the tourist traps, the well-worn paths when we travel?
Absolutely. We go to the same iconic landmarks, take the same photos everyone else takes, and we kind of miss out on the hidden gems, the experiences that truly connect us to a place.
Exactly. So I think it's time we encourage our listeners to venture off the beaten path, to embrace the unexpected, and to discover those unseen destinations that are just waiting to be explored.
I love that idea. So for all our fellow adventurers out there, let's get a little more specific. What are some practical tips for finding those hidden gems when we travel?
Well, first and foremost, do your research. Go beyond the typical travel guides and blogs. Look for local publications, online forums, or even social media groups where people share their personal experiences.
That's a great tip. It's all about tapping into the knowledge of those who live and breathe the culture.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Talk to locals. Strike up conversations with shopkeepers, or even ask your hotel concierge for recommendations. You'll be surprised at the insights and hidden gems they can reveal.
It's all about being curious, open-minded, and willing to step outside our comfort zones.
Exactly. And remember, sometimes the best experiences happen when you least expect them.
So true. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Iraq, let's encourage everyone to embrace the spirit of adventure, to seek out the unseen, and to discover the richness that lies beyond the familiar.
Because when we open ourselves up to new experiences, we not only expand our understanding of the world, but we also discover something new about ourselves.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. Where will your next adventure take you? Hey, everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going back in time, way back to ancient Mesopotamia. Can you picture a world, like really picture it, a world without wheels?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Or what about a world where no one had figured out writing yet? It'd be total chaos, right?
Right. Chaos.
Well, that's what life would be like if it weren't for all the incredible things that came out of ancient Mesopotamia.
You know, it's funny you say Mesopotamia, and most people just think,
Yeah.
yeah. That's that place between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers.
Right.
But it's so much more than that.
Oh,
It
yeah.
really earned that nickname, the cradle of civilization.
For a reason.
For a reason.
So many of the things we just take for granted today, they got their start there in ancient Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
All those amazing cultures, Sumer, Babylon, all of them.
It's mind-blowing when you think about it. Their innovations are everywhere.
Yeah.
Like literally woven into the fabric of modern life.
And that's what we're going to dig into today. All those Mesopotamian innovations.
Yeah.
We still use.
Yeah.
Every single day.
I love it. Let's start with the big one. Literally, the wheel.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, we take it for granted now, but somebody way back then, 3,500 BC or so, in Mesopotamia,
Yeah.
had this light bulb moment,
Yep.
and it literally changed the world.
It's true. Just imagine, like before wheels,
Yeah.
how did people even move anything heavy?
I
Or
know.
travel long distances?
It makes you realize this invention, it didn't just revolutionize transportation.
No.
It went way beyond that.
Ready.
Think about trade for a second.
Okay.
With wheeled carts,
Yeah.
moving stuff suddenly got so much easier, which
Yeah.
meant more trade routes, bustling markets. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, this is where it gets really interesting. You start to see more exchange of ideas between different cultures.
Oh, wow. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
the wheel kick-started ancient globalization.
Exactly. Globalization on wheels.
I like that. And don't forget about agriculture.
Oh, right.
I mean, hauling crops, bringing in supplies. Farming just became so much more efficient.
Way more efficient. But there's another connection between the wheel and what's on your dinner plate today.
You're talking about irrigation, aren't you?
Exactly.
I've always been fascinated by that. How ancient people figured out how to get water to their crops, especially in dry places.
Oh, yeah. Places like Mesopotamia,
Yeah.
they were incredibly smart about it.
So how do they do it?
Well, they were using wheels to power these systems that would lift water so they could irrigate bigger and bigger areas, grow more food.
Wow. And are you saying that we still use some of those techniques today?
Absolutely.
No way.
Those core principles, they're still being used.
It's amazing to think a technology from thousands of years ago is still helping us grow our food today.
I know. Makes you think twice about just turning on the tap, doesn't it?
It does.
But hold on. The Mesopotamians, they weren't just master engineers. They
Right.
were pioneers in communication, too.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Around 3,400 BC, they developed cuneiform.
Cuneiform.
It's one of the earliest forms of writing.
I've always been fascinated by cuneiform.
Yeah, it's amazing.
From what I've read, this wasn't just like people writing down reminders or shopping lists.
Oh, no.
This was a complex system
Super complex.
for recording law,
Yeah.
business deals,
Yeah.
even epic stories.
Right. Think about it. That ability to actually write things down, to preserve information.
Yeah.
It was revolutionary. That's how knowledge was passed down. Through generations, it's how history was recorded.
Yeah.
And it's how complex societies started to organize themselves.
Can you imagine if we couldn't write down laws?
Or contracts.
Oh my gosh.
Total chaos.
Total chaos.
But it goes even deeper than that.
Okay.
Think about your own life.
Right.
What would your day be like if you couldn't read a text? Send an email.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Even just jot down a reminder for yourself.
I never thought about it like that.
It's incredible.
Writing is just so fundamental.
Right. It makes
Yeah.
you appreciate those Mesopotamian scribes.
Yeah.
They might have been chiseling on clay tablets, but they were laying the foundation for the way we communicate today.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready for a little math?
Ooh, math.
I know. It's not everyone's favorite subject,
You said it.
but the Babylonians, they were part of Mesopotamian civilization. They gave us something amazing.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Their base 60 number system.
Base 60. That sounds like something out of Star Trek.
I know, right? But here's the thing. We still use elements of their system today
Wait, seriously?
for measuring time and angles.
So that's why there are 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour.
Bingo.
Wow. That is wild.
That system, based on the number 60, it was so sophisticated for its time
Yeah.
and incredibly useful, especially for things like astronomy and engineering. And the Babylonians, they made huge advances in those fields.
And it's all thanks to their number system.
It really is amazing, those ancient mathematical seeds.
Yeah.
They're still bearing fruit thousands of years later.
It's true. Who knew a history lesson could make you appreciate math? But hey, we've only just scratched the surface
I know.
of the Mesopotamian world.
I'm ready for more.
There's so much more to uncover.
Yeah.
And it's all connected to our lives today in ways we might not even realize.
Well, again, what are we waiting for? Let's keep exploring.
All right. Let's dive a little deeper.
I'm ready to dive deeper.
Okay, so let's talk more about those incredible irrigation systems in Mesopotamia. Remember, it wasn't exactly like a lush rainforest there.
Right. It was super dry.
Exactly. So they had to be really resourceful to make agriculture work.
They were masters of water management, though.
They were.
So what kind of innovations are we talking about here?
Well, imagine this whole network of canals crisscrossing the landscape, channeling water from the rivers out to the fields.
Okay.
They built dikes and reservoirs to control the flow.
That's incredible.
Even during flood season.
Wow.
They really had a handle on it.
That sounds like a huge undertaking, though.
Oh, it was.
Especially back then.
Especially back then.
Without modern tools and technology.
It was a massive undertaking. We're not talking about small ditches here.
No.
These were complex engineering projects.
Wow.
It took careful planning, skilled labor, and a ton of cooperation.
It's like ancient public works projects.
Exactly.
But for water.
Exactly.
So how did these ancient systems influence modern agriculture?
Oh, that's a great question.
Like, are there any direct connections we can see today?
Absolutely. In fact, some of the most impressive modern irrigation projects are based on the same principles the Mesopotamians used thousands of years ago. Think about the Hoover Dam or the Aswan Dam.
Those are huge.
Massive structures designed to store water and release it when it's needed.
For irrigation.
Exactly.
Never realized those modern marvels had roots in ancient Mesopotamia.
It's pretty amazing.
It really puts things into perspective.
It does. And the connections. They don't stop there.
Okay.
The Mesopotamians also developed early forms of pumps and lifting devices to move water from the rivers and canals up to the fields. And those innovations, they paved the way for modern irrigation pumps.
Which are essential for agriculture today.
Absolutely.
So they were really at the forefront of water management technology.
Way ahead of their time.
Even back then.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what I find really impressive is that their innovations weren't just technological. They also involved like social and political strategies.
You're right. Managing a system like that, a big complex irrigation system, it required a high level of social organization.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They had to figure out rules for water distribution. They had to resolve disputes, and they had to make sure that everyone had access to this vital resource.
Yeah, water is essential.
It is. And it basically forced them to create sophisticated forms of governance and cooperation.
It's like a perfect example of how necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly.
So they were really good at irrigation. But were there any downsides? Like unintended consequences?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that even the best solutions can have unintended consequences.
Right.
And one challenge they faced was soil salinization.
Soil what?
Salinization. It's basically when salt builds up in the soil, which makes it harder to grow crops.
That makes sense.
And it can happen when you irrigate too much.
Okay.
Especially in arid regions.
Where the water evaporates quickly.
Right. And leaves the salt behind.
So it's like this environmental trade-off.
Exactly.
They solved one problem, getting enough water to their crops.
Yeah.
But created another problem.
Down the line.
Wow.
And it's something we still deal with today.
Really?
Modern irrigation systems. They have to be carefully designed and managed to prevent things like salinization and other environmental impacts.
So we can learn from the Mesopotamians.
Absolutely.
Both their successes and their mistakes.
Exactly.
It's like you said. Yeah. Sustainability isn't just a modern concept.
Right.
They were dealing with these issues thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
Trying to find that balance, between human needs and protecting the environment.
It's a delicate balance.
It is.
And they weren't just thinking about the immediate needs
of their society.
They were really forward thinking.
Okay.
Especially when it came to food security.
Okay. How so?
One example is that they developed large-scale grain storage techniques.
So they were stocking up for a rainy day.
Or a dry one in their case.
Right. Yeah.
They knew that droughts and famines were a real possibility.
Yeah.
So they figured out these really smart methods for storing grain to make sure they had enough food to survive tough times.
Wow.
And these granaries weren't just piles of grain. Wow. They were carefully designed structures.
So they were like protecting the food from pests and spoilage.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
Well, it's pretty amazing.
It sounds like they really understood the importance of planning and food security.
They did.
And that's something that we're still concerned with today, especially with all the challenges we're facing.
Like climate change and population growth.
Yeah.
They were ahead of their time.
It's amazing how these seemingly distant civilizations have had such a huge impact on our world.
It's incredible.
And we've only scratched the surface.
We have.
There's so much more to explore.
From their architecture and city planning to their contributions to law, literature, even music.
Lead the way.
Let's do it.
Wow, this deep dive into ancient Mesopotamia has been incredible.
It really has.
Who knew they had such a big impact on how we live today?
I know, it makes you think about all those connections between the past and the present.
Yeah, for sure. We started with wheels and riding,
Right.
but we really only scratched the surface.
We did.
I mean, their influence, it's everywhere.
It is.
Architecture,
Yeah.
law, commerce,
Okay.
even city planning.
It's mind-blowing.
What I find really fascinating is it wasn't just about the inventions themselves.
Oh, no.
It was their way of thinking, like their problem-solving skills and just their willingness to innovate.
They weren't afraid to experiment.
No, they weren't.
To push the boundaries.
They were constantly adapting.
To their environment.
Yeah.
Coming up with new solutions
Yeah.
to all the challenges they faced.
That's a spirit of innovation that I think we can still learn from.
Absolutely.
So speaking of innovation, as we wrap up our deep dive, I have a question for you
Okay.
and for our listeners.
I'm ready.
What modern invention do you think will have the biggest impact on future civilizations?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There's so much happening right now.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
Renewable energy. Gene editing. It's hard to choose.
it is.
But if I had to pick one,
Okay.
I'd say the internet.
Interesting. Why the internet?
Think about it.
Okay.
The internet has completely changed how
Yeah.
we communicate,
Yeah.
how we get information,
Yeah.
and how we connect with each other.
It's true.
It's broken down so many barriers.
It really has.
And created a global society.
It's like the printing press,
Okay.
but on a much bigger scale.
Yeah, you're right.
It's hard to imagine life without it.
I know, it really is.
It's become essential for everything.
Everything.
Education, commerce, entertainment, social interaction.
It really is.
And I think its impact is only going to keep growing.
I agree.
It's already transforming. Feels like medicine,
Yeah.
education, even government.
Oh.
Who knows what will be possible as it keeps evolving?
It's exciting to think about.
Yeah,
Maybe thousands of years from now, future civilizations will be studying us,
I like that.
and they'll be marveling at the internet.
Just like we marvel at the Mesopotamians.
Exactly.
We're all part of this ongoing story.
Yeah.
And each generation builds on the work of those who came before.
And it's up to us.
To shape the future.
Well said. So as we wrap up our journey to ancient Mesopotamia, we want to thank all of you for joining us on this deep dive into the cradle of civilization.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We hope you learned something new and gained a new appreciation for these incredible ancient cultures.
We did.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts.
What do you think?
What modern invention will have the most lasting impact on the future?
Share your ideas with us.
On our social media pages, or leave a comment on our website
And be sure to subscribe
to Unseen Destinations.
so you don't miss our next adventure.
We'll be exploring another fascinating corner of history, uncovering those hidden connections between the past and present.
Until then,
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.
see you next time.